All right, if you just sat through my 40-minute Sunday sermon, you're like, all right, Pat, get along with the fucking car audio shit. That's why I'm here. I'm here for car audio. Like, okay, let's do it then. So I did some searching and I could not find anything about anyone. I know there's videos about people reading stories, and I certainly want to do that because I miss my niece dearly. I miss all my nieces and nephews dearly, and I used to read books to them the way that nobody else read books. And I got it from my father, which was basically, kids love to hear the same book over and over again. But as a parent, it's very tiring to read Clifford the Big Fucking Dog over and over again. So what my dad would do was he would start making up, he would do improv. He would start making up, he'd flip the page and then he'd make up something, some other story that was wild and crazy or funny and things like that. And so I started doing that with my nieces and nephews, and they loved it. And of course, you know, the parents were not, it's not that they weren't happy, but it raised a bar that they could not match. And so some of them were a little jealous or a little envious and annoyed with my enthusiasm about reading books to kids. So, but the kids loved it. But anyways, I thought I could sort of do the same thing with you guys. Now I have here the two standards of what was in my age, my coming of age in the 90s, audio, sound, and security, which is sort of the snotty cheerleader of the two, and then car audio and electronics, which was more the hardcore and just, you know, like, let's get to the good stuff. I preferred this one much better. This one was more like chicks and cars, and you know, look, they even got fucking ZZ Top on the cover. So, and then the third one was Stereophile magazine, which sometimes would feature some sort of car audio, but of course was into you know, $2,000 and $3,000 subwoofers. And this was in the 90s. You know, for you to buy, and then of course everything had a glowing review. It was terrible. And full of bullshit. So, but I'm going to go ahead and choose my favorite, and we're going to go through this. Sorry for the glare. I'll get better as this goes on. This is from October 1996, which was right when I was, it was right before I was getting out of the military. I was stationed in Hawaii, and I read this exact copy over and over again when I started doing garage sales there, selling car audio at the swap meet. So, but anyways, we'll get along with it. Stealth boxes from JL Audio. This was the shit back then. And of course, these were all third party. I think Q Logic was actually behind a lot of this stuff. And JL at the time had a lot of money, and so they just sort of farmed it out to them. So I'll try to, I don't like that glare. That works better. It's not as bright, but it doesn't have a glare. So now, unbelievable. This was Stinger's advertisement. This was the trophy winner. They were a cheater. What they did was they took out the front seat, and they had, I believe, 9 Oz Audio 10s in, excuse me, aperiodic membrane. Meaning they had a fiberglass mat below, and then the backside of the woofer, or the other side of the woofers, was into the cargo area. And they had removed the front seat and then extended the pedals and the steering wheel to the back, and that was to give you a better equal distance of the front speakers for clarity, and because, you know, DSP was not really a thing back then, and that was, it won several trophies before the other competitors complained, and then it was made illegal. So I remember that one, about that one. So remember these? So basically these are step up, step down transformers depending on your input and output. But Stinger came along and just put their sticker on it, and then all of a sudden they sold it for a ton of cash. Gold-plated alternators, you know, pretty typical 90s stuff. Same thing with the battery. I don't think this was AGM, because AGM hadn't been around yet. These were just regular wet cells that they had put their decal on. I don't know. That's just some stuff. I'll try to do some scanning. I thought this would be a lot easier than actually taking the magazine apart and scanning it. And it's a lot less work for me, but also just to kind of narrate a little bit too. A lot of people at the time did not like Boss. People still don't like Boss. Boss is one of the largest electronics retailers in the world. They do insane numbers. And remember, Tony DeMore, I think he still works for them now. He went back to work for them because they pay so well. And he uses his salary to then do projects that he wants to do, like Diamond Box and also DeMore Engineering. So, but Boss, there's nothing wrong with Boss. Is it ugly? Yes. They lack a lot in styling, and typically they just let China to handle the styling. And so you got to understand from China's perspective, the United States is the most sophisticated market in the world. So what is sophisticated or what looks shitty here does much better in other parts of the world. And as I learned from Larry Van Sickle when I worked at Lightning Audio, we used to do huge pallets that we would ship to Saudi Arabia and all over Europe. And I was like, wow, why is it, how can this be worth shipping all the way around the world, when you get these items in? And he says, the global market is 75% larger or 75%, and then the domestic market is 25%. So when you do something, you want to do it global so that you can take advantage of that larger market. And then many times, because of the advertising restrictions, especially back then in the 90s, there was no internet, so you couldn't tell what products were being sold in other markets unless it was through a magazine. And again, magazine distribution, the Italian version of this magazine would not show up in America unless you were Italian or unless you specially ordered it, things like that. So, and that was a lot of the marketing. How do I say this? Advantages that all companies had back then before the internet. And that's one of the reasons why I promote that the future is non-badged or local badged. I sell you something with no badge on it. You put your badge on it, then you sell it for whatever. And then that way, nobody can look it up and say, oh, it's 50 cents cheaper on Amazon, right? And that way you're able to secure your market. And that's really what shop owners want anyway. They want their own brand because then you can control your marketing, you can control your market share and all that other stuff. So that one is Sherwood, which used to be a brand. Table of contents. Big double page full ad from, Autotech. So which was absorbed by Maxonics. At this time, they were not by Maxonics. This was the real Autotech, as they say. And a lot of these amps were made by Zed or Dick LeMay and Bernie Boland out of Tempe, which later became Orion and PPI and all that stuff. So this is Doug Newcomb. These were cool. I like these. This was the later versions. I liked the older versions. All they did was do a rebadge on these, but this was LA Sound. And it was just fun stuff from overseas, fun Chinese amps. They all were the same as anything else. They just put I think they took a cue from PPI, which was to have, instead of it just, like a computer font, they would actually have handwriting and things like that, just to kind of do something different. Again, all these amplifiers, all these products are the same. This is Rockwood. I'm sure you saw at the flea market. Again, nothing wrong with this. This is the parent company is called American Hi-Fi. They import lots of great products that I use, that I would often debadge. And some of their stuff has actually been pretty expensive lately, but they're importing, really badass Class D amps that everybody else is. And now you see that from DS18. DS18 is selling a 2200 watt Class D for like $600. Good for them. There you go. Big old skull ad. When you're out having gay sex with your friends, what do you want? Skull. We're going to go skiing. Sure you are. This fishing pole has not been used. Ooh. When you're begging for a good hard kick, That's what this guy is, because you don't like him. He's a alternative man. Or bass shakers. So also marketed under the Alpine bass engine. They paid for their own tooling on their own version of the heatsink. The only thing patented about this is the heatsink. It's not the technology, because the technology is just a vibrator. There you go. Tube driver. Now this is before PPI got their hands on it. This is BK Butler, designed by Butler Audio. So, and BK was such a douchebag. He sent like a threatening letter to me when I was selling on eBay, which, by the way, those plugs are back on eBay. Haha. He sent like a threatening letter, like cease and desist. Don't use the term tube driver. I'm like, bitch, you licensed this out to PPI, and these are for PPI tube driver boards. Your fucking tube driver by Butler use screw terminals. They're shitty fucking, screw terminals. Like, they don't use plugs. Fuck off. So, but I reserved like bkbutlersucksdick.com and all that kind of stuff. And I taunted him for a little while. So I'm a little bit of a troll if you haven't noticed. So Eclipse by Fujitsu 10, top of the line, really state-of-the-art shit. Very, very expensive, of course. I'm sure they found some company in Japan to make that stuff for them, and they put the brand on it. So why pay more when for $200 in 1996 you can get this equalizer that cost about $15 to make? There's some, see, they had a spider on the front. How come you guys aren't going gaga for that shit? Soren Vega's not, wasn't the first. Earthquake. Why pay more? Double ad by Earthquake. Look at that. They got the whole family. And then there's the real, or that's the distributor for Canada. And then CAP was and then Germany for audio design. Again, those are all distributors for the brand. They're willing to do a lot of heavy lifting, and then they make a nice profit by having a monopoly in that country, or I should say that market, that jurisdiction. Monster Cable, Pioneer, some pretty basic shit. Bostwick, that was another brand that Lightning Audio used to badge for. We would make capacitors for them as well. Bostwick, Orion. For a minute there, we were going to come out with PPI accessories, but that's when PPI started folding and they backed out of it. When I say that was when I worked at Lightning Audio. So here's my favorite right there. Oh, baby, I had a pair of those. Scratch and Dent from the BX there on bass. These were really expensive. Suggested retail was $280 a pair. I got them for like $40 or $50 because I just dented in the dome. The dome, by the way, this was by ADS. They were making them. Kodak was making these for ADS. And I think I told you the story about that, about the Gonzo tweeter, about when we were sourcing tweeters for all the mids and the crossovers that we had gotten from the ADS auction. We went back to Kodak and said, hey, can we get some domes? And they're like, no, you owe us 10 grand. I go, well, we don't owe you 10 grand, but ADST owes you 10 grand. And they go, well, nobody's getting any domes until the debt is paid. I think Kodak, went down the tubes anyway. So I don't blame them. But then we started looking in China and we go, hey, there's some cool shit in China. And so then we just started importing it from China. So that's how that worked. JBC, just be cool. Remember that? Never thought about doing that to a bandpass box. And then, of course, lots of alarms. Lots of good money in alarms because that brain costs about $5. And then you sell the fucking thing for $400. Really good markup. Acoustic. You guys, the bass pump that I showed you about them, I think that was, I can't remember when they got acquired by Mytech or if sometimes a brand is owned by a colleague. And then to bring the colleague on board, they'll technically buy it out, and then the colleague will then work under the umbrella of the new parent company. So sometimes those deals like that work, but it's a way to pay out somebody without actually having to for them to pay taxes and stuff like that. So Q-Pix, this was a little flash in the pan at the time. See that there? Suggested retail price is $269 for an equalizer that had a gooseneck. So, SOT, I actually was a fan of SOT. This stuff was made in Korea. Not that that made it any better, but Koreans were more evolved at that time than China and more well established. And so the thing that they're advertising here, right? Don't you wish you had a 12-foot arm? And it looks creepy, but it's a hot chick, or at least a really good-looking dude. I don't know. I can't tell. But they just added a bass knob, and then you would plug it in, probably up top. And of course, these are all made by the same company that makes for Boss and Pyramid and all the other ones at the time. Waterworks. Here's this Midwestern guy who did a Chevy Camaro. It's by Terry Miller. There you go. Pretty fantastical for the time. And then right into a profile ad. Discrete 3-channel versus tri-way operation. So they were trying to sell 3-channel amps, which never do well. But they had to find that out on their own. So. There's more of the install on the Camaro. We go back to the stealth enclosure. There's a second ad by JL Audio. Or the Camaro, got to have the first aid kit, got to have the fire extinguisher that with the matching body color, and then of course the was it EQ31? Was that the DEQ? Yeah, I got a bunch of these boards, by the way, if you guys want them. Boards. I think I have all the parts to put them together. I just haven't put them together. So, but you get all that stuff if you take all the PPI shit, which is $1,500, all those boards and all that kind of stuff. You get those too. So, just some of his engine bay work. Another ad from Pioneer. The Art of Entertainment, and then they have a dinosaur. What that has to do with car audio, I don't know. Then of course the diagrams. I always love the diagrams, so you can see what amps did what processors they were using. So Precision Power EPX223, and then the DEQ230, and then the Eclipse head unit, and then a JL, what was that, SW6, and then Fultron Aria, which I don't know if they show them in there. The Fultron speakers, yeah, there we go. I like those. Those were made by, I forget the brand, but I was able to find the vendor when we went to the auction at ADST, which was Orion, and they had actually released these from Orion under the XTR brand. The tweet, I think Eclipse also came out with this, which was having the tweeter in the voice coil. It actually had a separate motor. It had a little neodymium magnet in the tweeter, but it was just mounted in the voice coil so that it would be concentric, meaning time alignment would be appropriate or better than the competition. Not that it really mattered, but it was a cool thing to look at. The problem that they had on a lot of these was bonding the poly to the rubber surround. A lot of those times they came off. So, but yeah, Orion had their version. I think it was called the CS series, XTR CS, and they had the CX5, CS6. So we had a bunch of those after the auction. So still good. That's the, still good design. There you go. One Stroker plus one Maniac equals a world fucking record. And what was the world record at the time? Let's see. 160. Yeah, everybody does that. Good old boy. Was that that's a Mustang. Not really a Mustang guy. But if you are, look, he perforated the back seat, the doors, put a television in there. Who puts a television in their car? Clarion. That's who. Typically that's how it works. So Clarion knows that you're going to be featuring, you're going to be featuring the Clarion 6-inch monitor, and then they buy ad space right next to it. So they go, oh, I want that. Guess who offers it? Clarion, right there. So they paid a lot for that. So, and then the guy went with the punch. There's that's probably the 650. Let's see if they do a diagram for this guy too. It's got a VCR in there too. Look at that. VHS or beta, bro. Rockford OEQ1. Power 300. Sorry, my bad. That was the smaller 4-channel. And then they had the medium-sized one, which is 650, and then the Power 1000, which was the big 4-channel. So, Alpine highs mixed with Rockford highs. What? Crazy. And then, of course, Alpine right next door. Beautiful. People call these the chiclet series. They look like chiclets. Then here you go. Here's the boys. Richard Clark and David Navone. So, the experts in all things that is car audio. Even D. Snell from Prescott Valley, Arizona said blah, 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 blah. So MTX wanted to get in on that, on the triple subwoofer. This was a triple 12 ohm. So it'd come down to 4 ohms, and then JL had their version, which I think was a dual 6. So you could wire them in series or parallel. Troubleshooting. A lot of questions, question and answer. I love Power Acoustic, and they've made tons of money, and they made so much money, they bought Soundstream from the dead. They made so much money, they bought PPI from the dead. But I don't understand this one. But I liked a lot of their knockoff amps because I could not absolutely afford they made a DSM knockoff, and then they also, I think they made an Art knockoff. Mobile Authority also made an Art series knockoff, the PPI Art series. So I also had a pair of these in the front of my Kia, my 1994 Kia. These were in the front, and then the ADS ones were in the back. All scratch and dent from the BX there on bass. This is Altec Lansing, which of course you still see this design today because it works great, but you don't hear about Altec Lansing anymore. Choices. Are you a bro? This is before it was called a broser, right? Before the broser era. It's like, are you hardworking? Streetwires devastates. There you go. Spring Break Nationals, that used to be a thing before COVID. There you go. Dynaudio used to sell car audio. And then they were like, you know what? We're so fucking snobby, we don't have to even sell raw drivers anymore. I think they only sell home speakers now. Had the Xtant amps. Xtant was acquired by Mytech. So was Esoteric, or at least the accessories division of Esoteric. The amplifier division of Esoteric was Rocktron. The amplifier division was acquired by Diamond, Ricky Farr of Diamond Audio. Of course, Diamond Audio was, I think his name was Mike Diamond. So not Michael Diamond, but I think it was Mike Diamond. I don't know. I remember reading his obituary in one of the trade mags about the legacy that he left behind, and then Ricky Farr sort of took it over and hijacked the brand. So this is Terry. He's a good guy. Look at that sweet little guy. Takes a lot of largely unseen volunteers to put a sound off on. That is correct, and it's thankless. And then when you're me and you go to the local strip club and you're like, hey, would you like to send a girl over to promote for the club, right? Because we couldn't afford to get fucking bikini models, and none of us had bikini models for wives or anything like that. So I had I went over to the strip club and I said, hey, can you send a girl over? They sent 4 over and the bouncer. It was fucking great. And then some lady got mad and said, was inappropriate. I think I told this story before, but she got mad. And she had a fucking 10 and 11-year-old. Like, how do you have a fucking 10 and 11-year-old? Like, you're somebody's sticking things in your butthole. So, or not sticking them in your butthole, and you're ending up pregnant at 9 months and shit like that. So, take control with Eric Abyss, maybe. I don't know what the whole fedora is, but it's terrible. But this was the 90s. So, and then what this has to do with security is kind of dumb. Clifford was also acquired by Mobile Authority, Anaba USA. Look at that, Frankenstein. Basically, probably the guy that did a lot of this work for Phoenix Gold. Phoenix Gold probably wasn't paying him enough, and then he goes and starts Frankenstein amps. That's how a lot of that stuff works, you know. Like Tony DeMore, he made that 10,000 watt fucking capacitor in this bazooka ad was like in every car audio magazine. And that's because bazooka subs suck. They put a little shitty sub in there, and then it's just marketing that it's round, and this is all just PVC pipe, sewer pipe. And then they made the port out of a chopped piece of sewer pipe and just put it on there. So, but it sold, and they fit places other ones didn't. So, what is that? PPI amps? What are those? Can't focus. Sedona. Those are Sedona amps. Cute. There he is. There's the trophy winner, Mark Elridge. He, there you go. There's some of that $4,000 money for expert mode. That guy looks familiar. That's, yeah, Mike Maneo. He's he kicked me out of his group because he was talking about some bullshit and I called him out on it. So fuck you. A lot of these guys look familiar. Terry Miller. And then there's the crew. It was funny. There was one, I was watching one of these things and some Beavis guy that was like the Beavis of the group had gotten an Orion tattoo on him. This was before people were actually crazy with the tattoo stuff, getting brands tattooed on their bodies. Now people get QR codes tattooed on their bodies. There you go. Got to have some boobies. Kind of a hair trick. Matt's Room of Doom. Hollywood Sound Labs also had a Room of Doom, and Rockford and everybody else. So, guys with too much money and too much time. Here's your winners. There you go. And then, of course, you can go back and pause all this. If you want to see, you go, look, I'm on Patrick's YouTube. Like, yep, you're on Patrick's YouTube. Here's the pros. So you can tell your parents. If you're still living with your parents and you're watching this video, I feel bad for you. I think you can do better. Gotta have the token guy. Because it's mostly white people. These are some fucking white people problems. Let's see, I don't really recognize any of these names. There you go. And then, of course, PPI. Look at that. Beautiful. Piece of shit. Right there in Phoenix on 38th Street. It doesn't exist anymore. That whole business park got wrecked. And they made the Cotton Center. And that whole area, that building does not exist anymore. There he is. There's the Wizane. There's the Wheezy. The original Wheezy. Crippled guy with the bass cube in there. There you go. There's Wheezy. Working on the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon. There it is, the Grand National. There's the setup. See, those are the 12s I was telling you about. This is the Speakerworks Buick. If you want to go through, you can read all this stuff. Eric Holdaway was also part of that crew. I think he was at the installer part of it. And of course, they took the professional audio 1/3 octave EQ, and you know, all of these equalizers and stuff basically just work on plus and minus, usually 15 or 30 volts, which is also known as phantom power. And so if you can get in there and make a little power supply for that, guess what? You can use this for home, because you don't want to use an inverter because it's kind of, it causes noise and it's noisy and it's bullshit. So what you do is you go in there and what the power supply inside this thing turns AC into DC, and then it does a plus and minus rail to do everything. So depending on the design, so sometimes they're, like you saw with the Orion amps, they're plus and minus 15 volts. I think Rockford did a plus and minus 18 volts. So it just depends on what the designer picks or the engineer picks. Waterproof, fireproof, and bulletproof. There you go. The Hex series from 1996. And this was when they were in Santa Monica, importing from China or Germany, and then Germany was importing from China. That's the bass cube for the cripple guy. I remember that one. And the big butt plug with the amps came out. And then the little yellow CRX. That was when they made CRXs like fucking competition winners. JVC, nobody cares. And then some more of that. The Fishman, Rivera. There he goes. David Rivera became known as the Fishman after he showcased 89 Corolla with an aquarium in the back seat. There it is. There's the aquarium. And then the bass tubes go through the aquarium. What? And then Mother's Milk. Cheap Thrills. For only $3,000, you can get a trophy system. Well, and a lot of fucking work. Most of it is in the prep. It's not in the equipment. So, because resistors are resistors and FETs are FETs. It's really an expensive process to use a fake FET and then it doesn't perform the same. So it's not really worth using. What you realize is that they're not paying shit for FETs and resistors and capacitors, and fancy brands are making a ton of money off of you. There you go. Labor, $1,000 at $30 an hour. Oh, that's cheap. It's like $150 an hour, $170 an hour now. There you go. Mixing brands. Urban Audio Works. Oh, I thought that was a dude. That was two dudes. Like two dudes in the city. That's right. He's like, nah, I love black girls. And they got the Asian guy, they got the Hispanic guy, and they got the girl, the trashy girl, the alternative, and then they got the chubby whatever he is. Some sort of what's his name? Roadhouse. You could be my Saturday Night Regular. And then the amplifiers. So I had several of these. We got a bunch of those. Of course, those use the plugs I was telling you about. And then this thing is removable to show off the crossovers. So, because they wanted to be fancy pants and sell you lots of the crossovers. So, and then here's all the specs, man. In black and white. Look at those prices. Jesus Christ. For a 300 watt amp, $500. So, and they all, what do you know, perform all about the same. So there's not really any difference. And you're being scammed by all of these because all of these are advertisers in the magazines. They're only showing you the products of the companies that paid for advertising in the magazine. See, so it's not this piece of shit, AccuVolt. Guaranteed, blah, 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 keeps your voltage up, right? But at the sacrifice, you got to sacrifice current for voltage. There's nothing's for free. Let's see, who won? MTX. The lonely MTX, the ugly MTX. A lot of people didn't like those amps. So they beat the Zapco. Zapco got third. Look at that. Punks. Second. First. Kenwood. What are these? Performance ratings. I don't know. Whatever. They're all turds. Expensive turds. And then they even do even flow on the AccuVolt. And this is all, of course, paid promotion. But back then you didn't have to say this is paid promotion. So they were just like, we're doing an independent review, and they're lying. So there's stuff. There's a second opinion. Unless you experience amplifier clipping, you don't need more power. I know a lot of motherfuckers that need more power. Ampere, power ampere. High end pure class A with transistors, not tubes. This is the Jensen Nitro. Yeah. Jensen makes some really good amps. They're owned by Oh, I forgot the name now. Audiovox. Huge international electronics manufacturer. Mobile Authority, Anapa Group. In Japan. We're straight out of Compton. That's where those guys are. Hot Shots. Psychosa. This was the one I was looking at. See? So the Phoenix Gold Cyclone is like a washing machine, like no other. And of course, it was not by Phoenix Gold. It was licensed by Phoenix Gold from the inventor. I never had this one. I had the one before that, which was the 4600X. These are the after version. What they did put the X cards on top because they said installers would install the amp and then forgot that they didn't put the X card in correctly. And so then they have to take it back out, flip it over, put the X card in correctly, and then put it in. So they helped you guys out by, number one, putting all the connections on one side. And then the other one was taking this shroud off. And then also the heatsink was much smaller. But I think it went all the way down on the base as was part of the heatsink. Even though the heatsink doesn't do any good when it's pinned to the carpet. So... But it's the Series 1, so nobody gave a shit. So, or what did they call it? Yeah, it's the Series 1. I think they renamed it. Yeah, see, fat with a PH. See, there you go. See, and I make fun of them too. I make fun of all you guys. Because the marketing is just mostly of what this shit is. See, you got a real solution. Soundstream, what is that? Airbase. Oh, it's just a wireless subwoofer control. There you go. Good job. Good job, Soundstream. See, and then you used to be able to circle this, put your name on it, and get free literature from those companies. And then they, of course, would keep your name forever. And they're like, here's a dummy that's willing to overpay for stuff. Hey, cutie. What's going on? That's Linda Perry on Interscope. San Francisco 49 Blanc turned into one brunette. Haha, Linda Perry. Super Ball. Look at that. Oh. Stick shifts and safety belts. Bucket seats have all got to go. When we're riding in our car. See, they used to sell it. They used to sell it in that and through Madison. You used to be able to buy the drivers alone. That and Morel drivers. And also there was a knockoff company that was done. It's two brothers, Morel, and I forget the other name of the other one. I'll have to find some of the ads for it. Of course, Imbicourt, made like they were made in Germany. It's all bullshit. Or somehow that they were better. They're just really fucking expensive. Cadence, good old Cadence. Sold with the MCM, sold through MCM, which does not exist anymore. It's one of my favorite places. There you go. Veritas. Just a rebrander. I think these were also sold by AlumaPro. And then, of course, the bent horns. They just put their own. And they got Acubase. Which again, there it is. There's the Aria. So by Fultron. Out of Memphis. And that is made in China. And that was made for several other companies. So, but it's almost noon here. I got to open up here soon. Mobile Dynamics. Right there. West Phoenix. This was the impregnation idea of Rockford, Alpine, MTX, all the brands here that were here to make you think that only their brands were good. And then they kind of showed you some installation stuff. It was all bullshit. They would finance you through a student loan company, and then they would allow you to purchase stuff at dealer cost or team cost, and it was all bullshit. So it was just a way to get 40 grand out of you. So, and get you to come out here to sunny Phoenix for like a month. I think the school was on like a month, maybe 2. I don't know, 6 weeks maybe. And of course, the whole time you're partying, You're not even studying, even though your mom and dad paid for the school. And then, of course, good old DEI, when it was just Congressman Darrell Issa's little pet project. Got the amplifier out of the board out of the sink. And then the back cover, good old MTX. Thunder, 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 thunder. Loud and clear and hard. I hope you guys enjoy this. If this was too long, we're looking at 40 minutes right now. Let me know. If you want me to just flip through the pages and do it that way, I can do it that way. But that is the video wrap for Car Audio and Electronics Magazine, October 1996. I love you guys. I will talk to you later.